Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Limited Time Only. I'm your host, Spencer, and I'm joined by my co-host, a man who's a silver pro and a one-time GTP top 8 a GP top 8 competitor, Danny Cathro.
Hello.
So I had my volume on the podcast live, so as I was talking,
I did the same thing.
Hear myself.
I did the same thing.
So I was just like, somebody talking, and I was like, oh, that's me. I'm talking.
Yeah, I had the literal exact same thing happen. I just was making a weird face, like, what is happening? Are they going to fix this?
And then you realized it was you.
Yeah, my bad.
Just because you have a GP top 8 doesn't mean you know how to use a microphone.
I used no technology to play a GP.
Well, we're excited to talk to you guys this week. This week we're going to talk to you about understanding signals unlimited and kind of what goes into that. So we're kind of stoked on that. This will be a fun episode. So we hope that you guys enjoy it. But before we get into the episode, we just want to talk to you about our sponsors. Don't forget to check out our sponsors both at GameGrid and the Manabase. GameGrid is an amazing place to play Magic the Gathering. I have a GameGrid down the street from me. They are one of, if not the best place to play Magic the Gathering, and we really appreciate their sponsorship. You can check them out at play@gamegrid.com. You can also download their app, and yeah, check them out. They're pretty awesome. You can check out if there's a location for GameGrid near you, and we really appreciate their sponsorship. So you can also check out our other sponsor at the Manabase. If you're looking to buy a box to do your next draft, we highly recommend checking them out and going to their sponsor at Fusion Gaming. Fusion Gaming has $2 shipping across the entire U.S. So go out, buy your booster box, get your next draft in, and it should be really exciting. And you know what's so cool about that is that with the new draft setup in I think it's in a year from now, where every set is drafted alone, every time you buy a booster box, you don't have to worry about having extra packs of the other set. You can just straight up be like, okay, well, I just need to buy this booster box and do my drafts.
Is that a thing? Like they're not going to have blocks anymore?
That's correct.
That's really interesting. I mean, I knew that they were somehow bringing back a core set, but I didn't catch the no blocks.
Yeah, cool. So if you're looking to get those booster boxes, we highly recommend checking out the Manabase and Fusion Gaming. So let's get into this. So our first segment every week, we like to talk about our biggest movers. So we like to talk about the cards that are the biggest movers up, or the biggest movers down for us. Let's start with our biggest mover down. Danny, what is your biggest mover down this week?
All right, going with my theme of saying my biggest mover down is a good card. My biggest mover down this week is Oketra's Avenger. So the reason why,
I think that's reasonable, actually.
Yeah, so I think that white as a color has been struggling a little bit. So the really aggressive white decks that you're looking to get, they're pretty hard. Like you have to have a very synergistic deck. You have to have a lot of the pieces in order to compete with the slower decks that are in the format. And so, although Oketra's Avenger is good, it's not you can't take it as highly because it's unlikely that you'll be able to get as cohesive a deck as you need to have success. And there's a bunch of O4s. So a lot of times you have to kind of, if someone just plays the Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs, you're in a rough spot and you have to draw your Hone Kapesh or do something to make your Oketra's Avenger work again. And a lot of people are playing that card, the Wall. So you're kind of in a rough spot even when you draw it on curve and you play it when you want to. So
yeah, and I mean, even when you think about, other cards, right? If they don't ramp with their Oasis Ritualist, it's going to happily block that thing. I actually agree with this mover down. I obviously your last mover down got some buzz among our listeners.
I'm not saying it's not good. Just mentioning.
Just your base mover down.
Just mentioning.
But I actually think that this one is. When I've drafted white decks, they've actually almost always been exclusively blue-white flyers, and I'd actually rather have the O4 in the 2-drop spot than Oketra's Avenger.
Yeah, I've had success with white-green.
But
you have to have
that
a
deck's
lot
different
of it,
because you have to have this card to make that deck good.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I don't actually like drafting those style of aggressive decks. If I wanted to be aggressive, I want it to be Blue White Skies or like Red Blue.
Red, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're almost always blue-based aggressive decks that have to do with Aerial Guide more than anything else.
Yeah.
And so because of that, like, yeah, this card's good with Aerial Guide, but I'd actually rather hold the ground while being able to deal damage with the O4 that deals damage according, like if you have deserts. Yeah. So because of that, this card has actually moved down for me too. So
yeah, it's mostly like a white-green card. Where
yes, it is.
Yeah, yeah.
White red sometimes too. Like
sure.
Because this is your best 2-drop, because the red 2-drop's kind of suck. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. My biggest mover down is even Reed Stalker. People might be surprised by this one. They might be like, wasn't this card mediocre? But I actually won a couple of drafts with this card in my deck early on in the format. I thought that the card was like kind of overperforming for a little while, but as the format's gotten bigger and bigger, the card gets worse and worse because you're not getting enough out of your 4 mana compared to what your opponents are getting out of their mana. And because of that, like if you have like a bunch of the Impulse Mana Leak split cards, you know, what is it called?
Supreme Will.
Supreme Will. I was gonna say Unified Will. I'm pretty sure that's not the new card. I feel like a bunch of Supreme Wills and stuff like that, like the card gets a little bit better, but I actually thought the card was overperforming for a little while, and I was starting to take it probably a little too highly, and it's kind of just moved down for me.
Yeah, there's also the the white 3/3 flyer. Is the common that makes this one look silly. So like the 2/3 flyers sometimes in a format will be really good because there's lots of 2/1 or 2/2 flyers.
Remember the one that gains life?
Yeah, Aven of Enduring Hope. So like the Aven Reed Stalker will run into that thing a lot, or it'll run into the Bitterbow Sharpshooter. So it doesn't get in as much damage as you would like, and there's not aggro decks for you to get the free kill on a 2-drop. So it's not impactful enough.
Sharpshooters is actually a huge reason that I don't like this card as much. Because you're spending 4 mana for a pretty poor stats, hoping that the flying kind of pushes it over the edge and maybe like you eat a 2/2 with it. But because so many of the decks just like are always going to jam their 4/4 reach that has vigilance, like it just brings this card down a lot because they just get to play the turn after you play this anyway. So let's go to our biggest movers up. And mine, I think this might be the first time that we've ever had a rare or better in our biggest movers. But the only limited I played this week was a PPTQ that was sealed with a top 8 draft. So I got to play some sealed and some draft as I made it into the elimination rounds. And I got to play with Combat Celebrant for the second time, but the first time in blue-red with multiple aerial guides. And oh my gosh. Like,
yeah.
So the only other time I've gotten to play with this card was actually in a black-red deck, and I thought the card was like terrible. I was like, this is so bad. But I got to play with it with Aerial Guide, and I was like, oh my goodness. I actually lost a game where I played my Combat Celebrant probably a little bit too early, and I could have played a different creature in that slot, and I played the other creature. I might have actually made it onto the finals to give myself a chance to win the PPTQ. But wow, like it represented so much damage with Aerial Guide in play.
Yeah, that's completely insane. The dream hand of going Aerial Guide and then Combat Celebrant Cartouche. Ooh, yeah, you should do that. The red Cartouche.
Yeah, that's a casual 14 damage right there. Or, no, that's actually not that good.
No, I mean, well, no, you just hit him for 7. You have next turn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Just wait.
But then why you play the Cartouche?
Because to give it haste.
Why?
I want to
just want to hit him for 7 that turn. Anyway, my point is that I actually was having a little bit of trouble with this card, and I do think that whether it's the blue Cartouche giving it flying or whether it's Aerial Guide giving it flying, wait, that doesn't work. The blue Cartouche just draws you a card, doesn't it?
No, it gives it flying.
It does give it flying. I thought it did. Yeah, and when I said it, I was like, "That seems so broken." But no, I do think that between those things, like the card actually belongs more in like the style that Blue Red has actually turned into in this format, more so than you would have expected. Between Aerial Guide and like even things like some of the, like I didn't actually play the one that gives all your creatures trample and then you draw a card, but like they're like you get a whole bunch of prowess creatures, so like being able to activate them all and then making them big for one single turn and getting multiple combats with those creatures is really powerful. And Combat Celebrant is like a card that I feel like you could probably get past pretty easily in Pack 2. Like, people are going to be like, my deck doesn't really want this card, and easily pass that to you. And if you're in a position to be playing blue-red, it's like, it's really good. I was really impressed.
Yeah, in that deck, it does seem like it would be especially good and has lots of different synergies that are interesting.
Have you played it in other red decks and been unimpressed with it too?
I don't think I've had a chance to draft it, or if I have drafted it, I never cast the card. So,
okay. What is your biggest mover up this week?
So the biggest mover up I had was non-cycling deserts, specifically the ones that fix your mana. So there's Holdout Settlement and Painted Bluffs, I think. So the reason why those have moved up is because as other people adjust to knowing that the cycling lands are really good, you're not going to be able to get as many.
You're forced into the
deserts.
Other ones.
Yeah, so you can't get as many deserts, so you need them, and so you need to move them up a little bit. And they're not that bad.
I feel like this only works in one deck though. Like, I can't play. I don't actually think that I can play. Well, that's not true. I guess they work in different decks. Maybe I understand what you're saying. So Holdout Settlement works in a certain type of deck, and Painted Bluffs works in a certain type of deck. Mm-hmm. So it kind of just depends on what you're expecting there.
Yeah, and then so sometimes you might have a hard time getting your desert count up because other people are also taking the deserts, and so just being willing to take the other non-cycling deserts is important.
Yeah, I think that. It kind of depends. Like, I don't really want to play Scorched Desert in my in my draft deck, but I do think that the two that you're talking about belong in, like, specifically like those 4-color decks or those maybe more aggressive decks can play Holdout Settlement. So it kind of just depends.
Like, if you had a red-white deck that had a Sand Strangler and the Ceradon, and you only got one cycling desert, you would really want to hold out Settlement. Like, that would be very good. And so making sure that you're looking out for those and taking them is important.
Well, let's move on to our next segment. Every week on the show, we want to talk about a color in the card format and give an update on it. And this week, I want to talk about white. One of the reasons that I want to talk about white is that I think that white is starting to go from the best color in the last set to people are starting to think that it might be worse than black in this set.
Yeah, it's been going down in people's perception for the past few weeks.
The first thing that I want to talk about really quick with you, Danny, is like, what are the notable commons in white for Hour of Devastation?
So the commons, the most notable is probably the Oketra's Avenger. That's kind of like it's, in my mind, the key common. Like, it's a really powerful 2-drop for an aggressive deck. It exerts, so it has those synergies. It kind of attacks through any type of blocker, so it gets in damage really well. And so that is like the main card that I'm looking to, because in the last set, white was really aggressive, and so that's like the key aggressive card. There's a lot of other, like, the other white commons don't lend themselves to being as aggressive though, which is, I think, part of the problem with white is that it's not as synergistic as some of the other colors. Like, there's not enough good aggressive white commons to reliably make a good aggro deck, and then you just have some duds that don't really do anything, and so you don't get as many good picks.
I don't know. I don't know if that's my opinion of it. I think that when you have a small set, you're more likely to actually get multiples of a common, right? So, like, I'm actually pretty okay to think that I might get multiples of Oketra Avenger. But one of the things that I think is more true is that it's like, where are things pulling me, right? So we have Steward of Solidarity as a 2-drop, and we have Oketra's Avenger as a 2-drop. And those are it. Those are the white 2-drops in this set. That's a small set.
The Mummy. Binding Mummy.
Is not in this
Or
set.
not Binding Mummy. Mummy Paramount.
What are you talking about?
The white 2-drop. Mummy Paramount. The 2/2.
What?
That whenever a zombie enters the battlefield, it gets +1/+1. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was an uncommon.
Nope, that's a common.
Oh, okay. Well, there's 3. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So those are the 3 white comments.
So I think the one that you said was actually an uncommon. I think you had the
Oh, I
next
have them
one.
backwards.
Yeah, Steward is an
You're
uncommon.
actually right. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes way more sense.
Yeah, because Steward is
Like-
busted. That card's insane. That card's really, really good.
No, I think that actually all of these 2-drops are good, but also do they also go
They're
in
different.
a little bit of different styles of decks, right? Oketra's Revenger is as aggressive as you can get. Mummy Paramount goes in obviously a zombies deck, and then you're a little bit more grindy with Steward of Solidarity. Then you go into, well, where does everything else take me, right? So like Solidarity Camel is surprisingly good, but where does it fit? Like, where do I want to play that card?
So
then you have, oh, go ahead.
yeah, so Solitary Camel is an interesting one for me because I initially was really high on it because I was used to Amonkhet and I was like, all right, this is great. It's a 3-drop. I get to trade off, kind of go into the late game, or even if it's 2 aggro decks, then I get to win the race. But the problem is that in this set, most of the matchups aren't like that. You're not normally playing racing matchups, and life gain doesn't matter. And so Solitary Camel would have been really good in Amonkhet.
I actually think you're wrong still.
I mean, like, sometimes it comes up, but there's lots of matchups where it's just a 3-2.
Okay, so let's go over like the major archetypes really quick and
Sure.
kind of talk about where the white decks fit into this.
Uh-huh.
So we have Black Rain's probably a non-deck at this point. Probably not something you need to worry about. White Black is a fringe deck that if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. Blue Red's a major player.
Yeah.
4-color green is a major player.
Yeah.
White Red is a player. As it's like the 2-1 deck of your draft. Green White can be a player. And then you have like
some people like
decks.
the blue black. Some people are
blue
really
black
high
is
on it.
blue
Yeah.
black is a specific to like what you get, right?
Yeah.
So where did this deck fit, right? So there's going to be multiple 4-color green decks in on a draft table, which is one of the reasons that Danny doesn't like Solitary Camel. There's going to be one red-white deck. There's probably going to be
Blue-red deck.
a blue-red deck, right? And then there's a mishmash of like what's left over. And Solitary Camel fits into a very specific part of that format, right? Solitary Camel is hoping that you play against a lot of blue-red, a lot of green-white, a lot of white-red. Like that's what it wants you to play against, right? So if you run into those 4-color green decks, it's like, okay, well, this is now just a 3-power, 3-mana creature. Hopefully that's good enough to get in 6 damage, which is not what Danny's looking for. But there are 3 decks in the format that you actually do want Solitary Camel against. And also, I'd like to say that, like, is this the most defined limited metagame we've ever had?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like the 4-color green decks are so good that it's like you have to draft with them in mind or draft them, and it's unique. It's really unique.
So, let's talk about, so Solitary Camels for me is one of the notable commons. For you, it sounds like it kind of depends.
Yeah. Like there's matchups that it's great, but there's lots of matchups that it's not. So I don't know.
So there's 2 more cards that I'd like to talk about a common really quick, and that's Sandblast and Act of Heroism. Where are you at on Sandblast and Act of Heroism?
So again, Sandblast is fine. It's fine. I was higher on it initially because the problem, Sandblast gets a lot worse if you're trying to use it out of an aggressive deck, because then you want your removal to be proactive so that you get in the 2, 3, 4 points of damage. Whereas with Sandblast, you attack, you kill their guy, but then they don't take 4. But if you have Open Fire or Unquenchable Thirst, then they're going to take the damage that you would get from attacking. So Sandblast is definitely worse if you're aggressive. And then if you're being controlling, then and your opponent plays around it, then that can be a problem. But like I still think it's a fine card. It just has weaknesses compared to other removal.
It's so funny, the hate that I think that these style of effects get compared to, like, I think that people expect, like, I'm playing through mana, I just wanted to kill something, is like kind of unreasonable.
It is, yeah. No.
And the thing that when I see something like Sandblast is like, this is a card that's going to always have a target throughout a game. like every single time it's going to kill a relevant creature, and in a racing situation, I'm going to win the race because of it. There's kind of like Solitary Camel that only comes up like it's at its best in 3 specific matchups and kind of mediocre in another one. But I think that if you think about like the 5-color green deck or the 4-color green deck, you're likely going to be playing against 4/4s with Vigilance. And this card kind of shines in that spot, as it means that they're going to feel like they can attack into you, and you're going to be able to then be able to attack back where you couldn't have. And I'm okay with that. Active Heroism is a card that has actually been super unimpressive to me. Like, I've actually thought that like this card would be quite good, and it has really, really underperformed as a combat trick for me.
Yeah, it's a stinker. Normally, you pay 1 mana for this effect.
Well,
like
not for +2/+2.
Yeah, or you pay 1 mana for either one of those 2 effects. You normally pay 1 mana for +2/+2, and that's it. Or like something really minor, not untap.
Yeah,
and something else.
Here's my problem with this card is that the combat that is happening, your little dinky creatures +2/+2 is not enough to typically like matter, and they certainly don't matter when they come back at you, right? The untap is almost irrelevant on this card outside of like maybe a matchup with Unquenchable Thirst, and on the front side, it's like, is this +2/+2 actually making my creature big enough to tango? And in so many matchups, that isn't true.
Yeah, like I think the card is
just not mid-rangey matchups, right?
Yeah, your games aren't decided by if you can like slightly trade up your 3-drop with, or like trade your Active Heroism for their 4-drop. Like, that's not going to win you the game. Whereas in other formats that would, like, you trade your Active Heroism for their 5-drop and it's game over. But in this format, they're just going to play something that costs 7, or play a Rampaging Hippo and then play another one. And like, so you need to be more aggressive than what this card is providing.
Yeah. Let's talk about a couple other cards. I want to talk about some very specific uncommons really quick in white. We have Sunscorched Champion. This is a card that I had just been blown away by. I actually didn't realize how impressed I would be with this card. I actually think this card is completely splashable as a card that like ensures you to win the game against aggro decks.
Sure.
I actually misbuilt my first seal deck. I didn't put this card into it. I sideboarded it in almost every single matchup in the seal tournament, and I was always impressed with it.
It's really good. I mean, it's good value. You can't splash the Eternalize very well. So, I mean, if you're in 4-color green, you can.
You can. That's what I'm saying. Is like, I was playing a 4-color green deck, and I was like, I should have just played this card.
Yeah. That is the nice part about those decks, is you can just splash.
I don't think it has. I actually don't know that it has a place outside of 4-color green. Is actually.
Yeah, there's some like white-black decks that might play it just as like that are trying to Torment of Scarabs you out of the game. But
speaking of white-black, we got one of my favorite YouTube comments we've ever received, Danny, was about unconventional tactics and how we were so wrong about the card that they'll never listen to our show again.
No, that card's just completely taking over the draft format.
Yeah, it's so insane. I believe we gave this card a 0. We actually didn't think it was playable at all. And I actually stand by that. I have yet to lose to this card, and I have seen many, many people lose with this card in their deck. I think the card's still unplayable. LSV gave it a really high grade. People really hyped on it. And honestly, like, and even going into the Pro Tour, he was like, white-black is the best deck. This is the reason that it's the best deck. And like, it's just not true. Like,
yeah, it's not.
Like, this card's bad.
It like in white-black, maybe it's playable, but that's pretty bad. Like, maybe playable in one deck.
Are you willing to pick this card, forcing yourself into white-black?
No, like I remember watching LSV draft, and he was saying like, oh well, all right, that means white-black is open if unconventional attack is still here, like 3rd or 4th pick. And it's like, I mean, I guess, but I don't know if that like.
But
sure,
I think LSV is a great drafter. I think that this card, however, is one that a lot of the Magic community got wrong. I think that a lot of people were like, this is the thing that lets you break through with your white-black zombies deck. But I just think that the format shook out in a way that, and I think that either way that it shook out was actually going to make this card not very good. I think I think that there was too much good removal for this card to ever really be great.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the card, like being sorcery pump spells aren't great. Like you need, sure, it comes back eventually, but yeah, they're just not. It's not great.
Angel of the God Pharaoh and Desert's Hold are two more cards that I like to talk about at the uncommon spot in white. Desert's Hold being like the premium white card, but the thing about Desert's Hold is that like you're probably not going to see them as the white drafter, right? Because of the way that the four color deck breaks down, all of them have deserts and they're all going to play this card.
Yeah, they all have lots of white sources, and if you open it, then that's nice, but you're not going to get past it very often, which is a drawback. Whereas if there's a double color removal spell, they'll be a little more timid about splashing it, even though they'll still probably splash it.
I've actually noticed a similar thing with Angel of the God Pharaoh being another card that's like, man, I'd really like one of these in my white deck. But the thing is that because it has cycling and because of Oasis Ritualist, you're probably not going to see this one very much either.
Yeah, this is one of the best cards out of it's a really good card in 4-color green, which is weird. And it's fine in white decks, but like the format is in a position where you're rewarded for either being in 4-color green because it's so good, or being in a deck that isn't competing with 4-color green because probably 3 people at the
this is why we see the green white deck, right? That plays all the white aggressive creatures and all the green aggressive creatures. Then we see blue red, which is like the spell heavy deck with Aerial Guide, right? Like there's a reason that the format shook out the way it does, and it's because you're trying to take the cards and beat 4-color green. Like your draft is dictated upon that. So like, how do I do that? Well, I'm probably going to be taking Aerial Guides. So what decks lean myself to being an Aerial Guide deck? Blue-White Skies, right? With specifically with as many exert creatures as possible for my Dauntless Haven. And then also blue-red spells, right? Like those are the blue decks and the white decks that I can play along with green-white. And then you have like red-white, right? Which is just like every aggressive card that I can find. I actually don't care about anything else. And these are the things that you have to do to combat this other deck. Yep. And white, the reason that it's moving down so much for so many people is like, we talked, what creature do we talk about that's like hyper efficient and aggressive deck? One creature, right? So who's going to get it? Is it going to be the red-white drafter? Is it going to be the green-white drafter? Like who's fighting over this thing, and how does your deck end up? And it makes white be in an interesting position in this draft format specifically.
Yeah, it doesn't have like the quantity of aggressive cards to fight the number one deck in the format, and it doesn't have a way to go late with that deck either. Like it can't compete. So it's in the spot.
Are you on the green-white side or the red-white side when you want to draft an aggressive deck?
I mean, I've really liked Catcher's Avenger, so I've been in the past. I preferred the green-white side. I also really like Appeal to Authority. I think that's like a really good way to kill them. So I think I like the mediocre green-white decks more than the mediocre red-white decks. I think the top tier of the red-white decks are better, I think.
I think that because so for me, I find that it kind of just depends on which exert creatures I can get first.
Yeah,
it's just going to dictate which way I go. Yeah. So if I can get, I'm going to get all of the Bitterblade Warriors, or I'm going to get all of the
Nefcrop Entangler.
That's the one I was looking for. The Nefcrop Entanglers, right? Like I'm going to get them, and I'm probably going to get my Gustwalkers. So I already know going into pack 3 that probably the other person, there's only going to be one other person fighting with me, and it's going to be the person that isn't what I'm doing, right? But one of us is going to get all the Nefcrop Entanglers, one of us is going to get all the Bitterblade Warriors, and then we're going to fight over the Gustwalkers. And the problem is the fact that you're fighting over the best card, right? That's actually what the issue is that if you were fighting over a Bitterblade Warrior, it actually wouldn't be a problem, right? because then you'd both get whichever of the other thing that you wanted. Or if you were fighting over Nefclop or Tangler, it wouldn't matter. But the fact that you're actually fighting over the best of the three is actually what the problem is.
Yeah. I've seen good versions of these decks, and it normally involves getting 2 or 3 Gustwalkers to like really make sure that your 2-drops are excellent. And it's hard to do that when red, white, and green, white both are going to take Gustwalkers really, really highly. And so that point makes a lot of sense. Is the overlapping with the white is really unfortunate.
When you sit down and you're building your sealed pool and you're opening your white cards, what kind of white cards do you hoping to open in sealed?
In sealed, the splashable ones, so like Desert Hold, the Angel. I would like to open cards that go in the green decks. I don't want Catcher's Avengers.
Not Crested Sunmare?
Oh, I would. Sure. I mean, yeah, I'll take that. I would. Yeah, like in sealed, especially, you almost only play green. So unless you get 3 Catcher's Avengers, you don't really want to open them.
It was so funny. So we're in, I think, round 4 of sealed, and I played against an aggro deck every single round, and I was like, I don't know what's happening here. Like,
had you lost?
I did lose round 3. I won round 4 to lock top 8. Okay. And afterwards I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like,
yeah, people probably just haven't played the sealed format and don't know.
It's funny because like somebody was looking at me and was like, well, Spencer, not everybody listens to limited resources. And I was like, yeah, but like I also do a limited podcast. And I just feel like it's blatantly obvious what the sealed format is about. Yeah. And to me, like, when I splashed for weird white cards, right? So I actually splashed for a Sunscorched Champion. I think was my only white splash out of Hour of Devastation. And then I splashed for the cycling 6-mana 3/3 Vigilant Angel out of...
Sure.
And it was actually just because like I needed things to ramp into that like had an immediate impact on the board, or that I could just go and get something else with. And I think that Angel's God Pharaoh is like the kind of uncommon that I would be looking for. And then if I was obviously like Crested Sunmare and Angel of Condemnation are like...
Yeah, they're insane. They're the best. Yeah, they're like some of the best green cards.
But yeah, I think that Angel and Desert Hold, what you mentioned, are kind of the things that I'm hoping to open in this sealed format. Specifically hoping to do that with some sweet mana fixing. So where do we think the color stands today?
I think I probably agree with the consensus that it's towards the lower end. I think green, I think black and white are both like pretty underwhelming. Black has more synergy, so I think black is better. Like you can draft a black deck where you have cohesive synergistic cards and lots of them, whereas with white you can't get that amount of quantity. Like you have to lean really heavily on your other color. Like there's some good white cards and you can have a good white deck, but I think for that reason I'd probably have it as the lowest color that I want to start out with. So.
Sure. I agree with that. I think that I don't know that I have it lower than black, but only because I don't know. Black's rough in this format, but
yeah, black's I do think pretty bad too.
It's close to black. I think that the other colors like red, green, and blue. Man, I can't believe we're talking about how good blue is.
It's like it's just
they're
solid.
So much better than those 2 colors in my opinion. That's where I would want to start.
Yeah,
and if I can be green, blue, splash another color, blue, red, or like those, that's where I want to start, right? Like, or red, green is like as a base, and then splashing another color is also good, right? Yeah. Like any of those are good, which is probably why I love this draft format. Is like everybody knows what my color preferences are.
Yeah, you just get to pick which 2 out of the teamer colors you want, or all 3 if you're
fine,
lucky.
Danny, don't worry about it.
You're like, oh yeah, get the black and the white cards. Yeah, get them out of here. We don't want this.
Black cards. I just prefer them with my green cards.
Okay, sure. All
right. let's move on to our training. So every week on the show, we want to talk about something that's going to make you better at Magic or life in general. This week, we're going to talk about something very specific to draft, and that is understanding signals. So, Danny, let's start this off with talking about like what is a signal in draft.
So a signal, it's interesting. It comes in certain ways. So a signal can be what is in the pack, or it can also be what's not in the pack. Because if there's a card that's really good that's in the pack, then you can take that as a signal because everyone had not taken it. Or if the pack is missing colors, or if it's missing rarities, then you can take that as a signal because you're gleaning information from what's not in the pack.
I think more specifically what I'm looking for here is like when you say what is a signal, I mean not what do you identify as a signal.
Sure. Like what is it?
What is a signal?
A signal is just it's information that you're gaining from the packs that you're looking at. So like in a draft sense, it's, I guess, what is it? It's like information being passed between the drafters that are around you, I guess is what it is.
So it's kind of understanding, it's kind of like your opponents non-verbally telling you what they're doing.
Sure, yeah. Like the person on your right is trying to communicate to you, some better than others, and then you're trying to communicate to the person on your left in pack one. Is it? In 3.
So what kind of, like, we're going to talk about a few kinds of nonverbal communication that what signals are. Is there, what kind of stake do you put into signals? Like, how important are they really? There are some people that are like, just ignore them. They don't actually matter. Like, and then there are some people that are like, if you don't understand signals, like you can't draft. And then there's us who are like, sorry, your first pick was not a signal. Your signals come much later, right? So like we're in the middle where we're like, you have to understand what is a signal and where it actually happens versus, well, they obviously passed me an Electrify pick too, so obviously red was open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you have to be wary because there are signals that have a lot of meaning, but it's mostly you're like taking steps in directions, I guess. Like with each pack that you see, you're like going down one path and you're kind of like painting the picture as you go. So you see that there's a Magma Spray in Amonkhet, and then in pack 1 of Amonkhet, and then you see that there's a rare missing. You're like, well, I mean, Magma Spray is better than like all but 4 rares. So, I mean, you can that starts to paint a picture. But then if you don't see red, then you kind of change the signals that you're getting. So you're just adjusting your expectations little by little as you go throughout the draft. But at the same time, so reading signals is very important. It definitely is. But at the same time, you have to draft a deck, so you have to be careful of, sometimes you can get in trouble if you like go too deep on reading signals, and if you cling on to one, and then you can get fooled. So you just need to be careful.
Let's talk really quick about like the kind of things that you actually should think about that might actually be signals. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the rarity of cards that are taken. So a lot of people actually stop at what was the rarity, rather what was the rarity and what's left over. This is actually how you should look at rarity. So if I have a rare missing and the card left over is the best uncommon in the set, what does that tell me?
There's like 4 or 5 cards that the person on your right should have taken. So you do have to be careful. Sometimes the people that you draft with won't know, but yeah, if you get past a Sand Strangler, then you're like, all right, well, there's only a couple options. Like Sand Strangler is pretty insane.
Okay, so I think that, in my opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I see Sand Strangler in the pack, and the pack was past me, and I see a rare gone, there are a few cards that I'm thinking about. Kefnet's Last Word is one of them for me.
Sure.
I think it might be one of the more underrated cards in the set, but actually, I think that most people have come around to like it being
completely bonkers.
Yeah. It being a little bit broken.
Yeah.
That's
all the gods.
Yes, and then the gods.
Yeah.
Though I actually don't know if there's another rare other than the Gods and Nicobolus and Cathnet's Last Word that I would really
Yeah.
think about here.
Yeah, I mean, because green is just so yeah, like maybe there's a green card just because green, you want to be green, but
Maybe
there's
Hour of Devastation, like maybe.
no, I don't think
I don't.
Wraths aren't that insane in this format.
Well, I'm
so.
just trying. Like, I'm trying to think of
What
like,
other people like?
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
but that's
there's
it.
really
Right?
not very many.
That's,
Yeah,
that's not very many cards. Like, it's Gods, Nicobolus, and Captain's Last Word for me has like really moved itself into the position of being like probably the best rare.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I see that Sand Strangler, right? Like, I don't know, maybe they took a Crested Sunmare, maybe,
Yeah.
but like it's kind of, but I'll know after the next couple of picks probably what they took,
Mm-hmm.
right? If they took a Crested Sunmare, I'm probably never seeing another life gain card as long as this draft is going.
Yeah.
If they took a Nicobolus, I'm probably not seeing Deserts. I'm probably not seeing Unquenchable Thirsts, right? And you'll know that relatively quickly.
Yeah. So that is definitely, and you can even apply the same logic later in the pack. So if you look at a pack and there's an open fire, maybe it's pick 4, but there's a rare and 2 uncommons missing, then that doesn't mean as much as if there's 2 other commons also gone.
This is exactly where I was going with this segment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if it's pick 4 and there's a rare and 2 and uncommon's gone, and I have Ambuscade and open fire, it's like, well, obviously red green is open, and it's like, well, this isn't quite where this signal is going. Now, if there's an Ambuscade and an open fire and another common is gone, I actually this is actually a very clear signal. One of two things happened. There was a foil in the pack, or somebody has something above open fire and ambuscade, and it's probably the only other card that could be in my mind is Unquenchable Thirst, which means that they were already blue.
Yeah, so the person on your direct right could have taken 2 blue cards and then an Unquenchable Thirst that they would take over getting
which is more reasonable than the foil. You can actually more safely assume that they took Unquenchable Thirst than that they took a foil.
Yep, for sure. And so it's more work when you draft like this, but it's definitely rewarding, and you feel a lot more involved, and you feel like your decisions make a lot more impact, because when you take these types, when you pay close attention to signals, you can really get a lot of info, and you can feel like you are participating in the draft, like you have control of what's going to happen. You decide your destiny, kind of thing. So
when we talk about, like, there's other things that you can consider too, when you're talking about signals. So like colors and how much there are of that color. So when I get past the pack, if there's 4 red cards that are playable in pick 4, it's like, it's pretty clear that nobody has picked a red card upstream for me.
Yeah, maybe the rare. If the rare's gone, then that's not like contingent, but it's very unlikely.
Right. If there's 4 playable red cards, that's a signal, right? Yep. But it can't just be like, well, there's a good red card, that's a signal. That's actually not what we're talking about here. It's like, okay, there's an open fire and another good red card and another playable red card, right? Like, if there's an open fire and a Braid and a Burning Fist Minotaur getting past to me, it's like, okay, so
they're not going to be in red. Like,
nobody upstream for me is in red.
Yeah, some people will make that decision. They'll like pack 1, pick 1. They open a pack that has Burning Fist Minotaur, a Braid, open fire, Ambuscade, and they're like, all right, I'll take Ambuscade. Like, it might be slightly worse than these cards, but then I can get all my green cards back too, because I'm gonna just cut green from now on. I can put them into red. I'll not worry about red anymore. And so that, I don't generally like that strategy, but I think it's a pretty commonly used one. And if you're the person that sees all 3 of the red cards, then you should definitely take the red card and like take advantage of the fact that they're going to elect to not be red.
I agree.
So the point about having multiple cards in the same color I think the picks that I value that information the most are like mid pack one. So like picks probably like 4 through 8 of pack one. That's when I use that information more than any other times during the draft. It's because if there's if it's packs or pick 7 and there's like 3 playable white cards, you're like, okay, well that means like you can start safely assuming that these colors are open, just because if almost everyone at the table has seen the pack and there's still cards there, then you can like it starts to paint a clearer picture about what's happening to you at the table.
I think I completely agree there, and you have to be aware of where you are at in the pack. And I think that none of this actually works if all of it doesn't come together as one for you. Mm-hmm. And so let's actually talk about some of the other stuff that you might need to consider in this spot. So like when we're understanding signals, we've talked about a few things, right? We talked about how much of a color there is. We've talked about the rarity that's taken. Let's talk really quickly. You talked about mid pack. Let's talk about late pack. Let's talk about the wheel. Mm-hmm. What does the wheel teach you, Danny?
So the wheel is really interesting because it's the most impactful pick with a lot of information. So what I mean by that, so the last pick of a draft doesn't mean almost anything, right? The second to last pick doesn't mean very much. But the wheel, there's still 5 cards left in the pack, right? So there's normally still some playable cards in the wheel. 5 or 6, I think. Yeah. So there's some good cards there still. So the pick is still important, and the pick is probably going to go in your deck or have a good chance of being in your deck. So when you see that, you've had perfect knowledge of what the pack started as, and you know every card that was selected out of it. And so if you look at your opening pack and you think about what is going to come back, you should be able to kind of line up, these are the best cards. These 5 or 6 should be the ones that are left. And if there's
I do this all the time.
Yeah. If there's any differences between what you've predicted should come back, you can take that as a signal of what, like, overall the table is not drafting blue. Like, let's say there's a Spellweaver Eternal that wheels. Like, that means there's probably...
I actually think that people do this subconsciously. A lot of times people will see that first pack that they opened, and they'll look at it and be like, how is this left? And they'll like look at the table, make this grand gesture. How is this left? What's going on? And it's like, did you look at that pack and do you remember what the rest of the pack is? Because if you do, it probably actually tells you something about the draft.
Yeah.
There are so many times in my drafting where it's maybe like pick 6, and I'll look at the pack and I'll be like, I'm going to pick this card, and I'm going to note that there are 3 more cards that I'm willing to play in my deck that are left in this pack. And I'm going to take note of which of these 3 cards comes back to me. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. Like, maybe it's not pick 6. That actually might be too late. But
it'd be like pick 3.
Yeah, but you'll be like, okay, I'm going to make this pick, and I'd like to see which of these come back to me, because it gives me an idea of what pack 2 might look like for me.
For sure.
And I think that not enough people do this. Danny will probably tell you that all of my draft decks look the same. It's not true. I can draft control, mid-range, ramp, like I can draft it all. But what he means by that is my deck is often full of a lot of commons. I will take a great common over a weird card usually. I don't really like drafting build arounds. I like just drafting solid game plans, and like that does lend itself to aggro probably more than I should draft aggro. But like I play, mid-range control, aggro. Like these like I just play basic draft strategies. And the reason that this happens is because I'm more likely to just take a solid card every time. And if you do this, if you draft the way that I draft, then understanding what's going to come back to you and what could reasonably come back to you is very helpful for understanding how you should actually draft in the next pack, because it means that you can pretty much dictate what your next will look like also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think that you probably, if you have an open, like straightforward draft strategy, you benefit from using signals a lot. So I sometimes fall into the trap of, I like to draft synergistic decks, and if I open something that is really like a powerful build round, I'll try to like go deep on it, and then using signals doesn't help me as much, or I can't apply that skill because you're committing yourself to Drakehaven. Let's say you open Drakehaven, you take Drakehaven. A lot of your choices have been made for you. Like you need to take cycling cards. That's your that's all of your options. But if you have an open strategy where you prioritize the cards that keep you open, then it's very important that you have really good skills at reading the table and knowing what's open, because that's how you're going to be able to get consistently get a good deck.
So, the last thing that I want to talk about is actually Pack 2. I think that getting the things that you expect to get in Pack 2 or not getting the things that you expect to get in Pack 2 is actually a really big signal. Mm-hmm. What happened here? Did somebody stay extremely open and open a bomb? Like, what can you reasonably gain from the information of things going the other direction?
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you gain about the other direction back? Like, there's a lot of things going on in Pack 2 that I feel like so many drafters ignore.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think a lot of people in Pack 2 sometimes feel like a victim. Like, all right, come on, man, to my left. Like, why didn't you get it? Obviously, I was drafting this. You're an idiot, and you're ruining my draft because you can't draft well. But in reality, that's not really how it is. Like, you need to know. You need to plan for Pack 2. You can't just take your cards in Pack 1 and then hope that everything works out and that the person on your left understands. And you need to be conscious of what you're passing him and what you're passing them and what they're going, like what is the likely strategy that they're going to fall into, and be able to adjust accordingly.
And I think it's important for you to recognize that they also have to understand what you understand. You know, I don't know that I've told this story on this podcast, but there was a moment at GP San Jose where we're sitting down. I just 3-0'd my draft. Michael just 1-2'd his draft, and he looks at me. He goes, "I don't understand how to draft. Like, if you could give me one piece of advice right now in the next 15 minutes before our next draft, Spencer, like what would it be?" And I was like, "Dude, just draft one color Pack 1, draft another color Pack 2, and then draft the same color Pack 3 that you drafted in Pack 1." And he comes back and he's like, "This is the best draft deck I've ever drafted. How come nobody told me this before?" And it's not a foolproof strategy. Let me do very
No, it doesn't always work, but
it is a strategy. When I talk about like understanding what you can expect from Pack 2, you probably, if you did this strategy, right, you actually probably know what the reasonable cards are going to be coming back, right? So like Pack 1, I picked all red cards. Okay, I'm pretty sure that the person to my left is not black and not green because of what I passed them. So I'm going to I'm gonna just pick a lane. Like I'm gonna like, okay, what's the best black or green card? Okay, all right, I am now black red. I'm black this entire pack, right? Like this is, you're sending a clear signal. So expect a clear signal back and draft accordingly. This can be a Pack 2 strategy. But the other Pack 2 thing that I'm talking about here is just that concept that's not as narrowed in, but like, okay, I passed this style of stuff. I'm pretty confident that the two people to my left are these things. Mm-hmm. Like, I could probably usually guess, if my opponent read the signals correctly, what he is drafting. Mm-hmm. And the goal of this draft is for me to the person to my left and the person to my right to work together to have the best draft decks possible. And Pack 2 is an indication of that, if that is working. Mm-hmm. And if it's not working, it's time for you to address those signals and draft accordingly.
Yep. I think so. You didn't mention this directly, but one of the kind of mean things that you can do to the person on your right is when if they send a very clear signal that there is no, like, I am red. And so if you are seeing no red cards, then the person to your left is just seeing the same cards as you, but -1, right? And so they're also not seeing any red cards. So they're probably not red. And then you can, so the draft all one color pack 1, draft all one color, a different color pack 2. I think that strategy is best when you do it like this, where you draft
the other way back.
Yeah, you draft the color that you didn't see at all pack 1.
Yeah,
pack 2. You just do it all pack 2. It works the best if you open a rare and then get cut really hard. That's when I generally go for this strategy.
Sure,
where you
you
cut it further so that you can get to play rare, because you're taking the
signal that your other opponent sent, right? Yeah. They sent a clear signal the other direction, and you're just piggybacking off that signal.
So it's not always the best strategy, because you're not guaranteed to get enough playables in that color, and then you'll have an awkward mana base or whatever it may be. But if you have a really good rare in the color and then you get cut, that's a lot. That is, depending on how good the rare is, then that oftentimes is a time where I'll go to this strategy, because I really want to play my rare. It's very powerful. I've tried to kind of hedge. So yeah, that is definitely the time where I think that strategy is the best.
Cool. Well, that's it for signals for this week. We hope that what we said resonates with you, and you can kind of get a better understanding of what is an actual signal, what's not really a signal, and kind of move on from there. Don't forget to check out our sponsors at GameGrid and the Mana Base. We really appreciate both of our sponsors. You can go to patreon.com/ccmtg to become a patron of the show. And all of our content, whether it's the YouTube channel, whether it's this, whether it's constructive criticism, patreon.com/ccmtg, everything is really appreciated. It means the world to us. So if everybody who listened to this show and all of our other content donated just $1, I mean, we would not have real jobs. We would play Magic, we would talk about Magic, and that would be our jobs. It'd be unreal. We would really appreciate it. So check us out, patreon.com/ccmtg. Danny, if people want to find you outside of that, where can they do that?
On Twitter, I'm pretty active there, so it's at DJ Cathro. That's the main place. And then also on the Facebook page or on Facebook, if anyone has any questions, you can always message me.
You can find me at Spencer13H. You can find me on that's on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook at Spencer Stephen Howland. You can find me in the Constructive Criticism Facebook group. If you are a patron of $5 or more, you can find me in the Constructive Critics group, where we post our deck lists before GPs and Pro Tours and PPTQs, things like that. Danny and I will probably post our deck lists tomorrow in that group for the GP. Danny's is bad. Mine's bad. All the decks in this format are bad.
Mine's great. I have a great deck.
You called the deck bad, literally, none, in the car with me,
yeah. It's not a good deck, but it's great. Do you see the difference there? It's the nuance.
Sure. You can listen to this podcast on constructivecriticism.com, mtgcast.com, every week live, twitch.tv/ccmtg, every Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. All of those are really appreciated. Any way that you can consume the content, leave a review, leave a like. Everything it means a lot to us. So, you can also join the conversation on Twitter by tweeting with #What'sThePick. #What'sThePick is our Twitter outreach program. If you tweet it, we will talk about it. I wanted to start this off. I really want this hashtag to catch on because I believe that this is the best way to start limited discussions in a real way. So if you tweet a picture with #What'sThePick, whether it's a screenshot of your Moto draft within the first couple of picks, or it's just a picture of a booster pack, we want to talk about those tough picks. And people are telling me this pick isn't close that I tweeted today, and I actually disagree. So we have joined the conversation on LTO with #What'sThePick, and the cards available to you, Danny, are Room Map Excavator. We have is it Painseer? Is that the name of the card?
Yeah, Fervent Paincaster.
Yeah, why don't you read?
Yeah, and then we have Saving Grace, Sunscourge Champion, Aerial Guide, Without Weakness, Survivor's Encampment, Defiant Kenra, Dauntless Haven, Gifted Ceradon, Graven Abomination, Jera's Renunciation, and Rampaging Hippo, and Frontline Devastator.
I actually disagree with the pick that our listeners have suggested.
Yeah, so I think the best common in this pack is probably the Aerial Guide or the Rampaging Hippo, but probably the Aerial Guide. And then we have a rare that's fine. It's not great though. And then Fervent Paincaster I do like. I think that card's good. I think the red aggressive decks definitely want Fervent Paincaster. It's really good in those decks.
Yeah, I like, so the three cards here from me are Fervent Paincaster, Aero Guide, and the Hippo. Like those are the best
Mhm.
cards in the pack. It's not particularly close.
Yeah.
I would actually lean towards Aerial Guide though. I think that it keeps you inside of, we've seen even Sam Black successfully take Aerial Guides and still stay in 4-color green. I think that
Mhm.
the card fits into every single blue deck. Um, and I don't think that's true of Paincaster. I actually don't think it fits into 4-color green very well.
It
But
doesn't.
Aerial Guide keeps me into red, blue, and 4-color green in a reasonable way, and I will snap off that pick every time here because I think the rest of the pack is actually pretty mediocre.
Yeah, I was initially really high on Fervent Paincaster.
Me too. Me too.
I think I would probably still take it here. I don't like I don't know. I like to try to be the one that's drafting the aggro deck at the table. I enjoy
Sure.
it. Like I feel like I'm doing something different. I don't know. I really like all the decks in this format really. I think the Paincaster might have the highest upside, but you might not get to play it as much. So
Sure.
it's like a trade-off, but I could see either of those being good picks.
Yeah, and the Hippo is one that, well, I think is like the next best card in the pack. It's just
Mhm.
its replacement value is so easy that I wouldn't take it
Yeah.
here. But that's it for this week, everybody. Don't forget to check out our Patreon only podcast is coming up, I believe, next week. So if you're a patron of the show, you can look forward to that with me, Danny, with Mason hosting, Michael Hinderucker on that show, where we talk about standard, modern, legacy, and limited all in one show. We get to talk about the decks that we're liking, the format as a whole, and it means the world to us. So thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you guys all next week.
Have a good one.